Body dysmorphia in 2024. This is hands down going to be one of my most important videos. I'm so glad to be making this clip right now because it's going to hit home so hard for so many of you guys. If you guys have been consuming YouTube fitness content for a long time, all the way to the newer lifters who are just starting now, it's going to apply to all you guys, especially, the older heads, people who've been, watching it for a while, because you guys probably already know what body dysmorphia is. And to the younger generation, if you guys feel a little bit intimidated, if you feel like the bar is just set way too high online and these crazy standards we're seeing online, from strength levels to the physiques out there, you're not alone. A lot of people have been saying this and it's triggering a lot of insecurity. So that's what today's episode is all about. I'll be discussing what is body dysmorphia, how I personally manage it myself, and the key word here is manage, which I'll discuss in a moment. And thirdly, and most importantly, some actionable steps you guys could start implementing by the time you reach the end of the video. It's going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. I wish I would have known some of these things, but at the same time, you mature as a lifter and you start to see certain patterns and you think to yourself, do I really have to keep going like this? There has to be another way. There has to at least be a mindset shift I could start applying so I could start enjoying the gym again, and not feeling, super down on myself for whatever reason because you're comparing yourself to these arbitrary numbers, these made up standards, or these things that you shouldn't really be concerned about. Ultimately speaking, at the end of the day, you should be focused on you versus you. You look at your physique check-ins at the end of the week. It's apples versus apples comparison. It's you're looking at your physique with a very specific lighting in the same place, and you could specifically say what needs work and what doesn't, and if you're on the right track or not, if you're progressing, because you have an objective way to really track it as opposed to just looking at people on social media and feeling down by yourself. Okay, so first things first, what is body dysmorphia? Different people have different opinions. I'll give you mine, and also from what I've read online. It's basically an overfixation on one's appearance, and more specifically in one's flaws regarding their muscle, regarding how lean they are or how shredded they are. And regarding the flaws, it's a lot of people could tell you, hey, you look great, especially when you go out in public. But body dysmorphia to me is when you're so focused on what you don't have because you're comparing yourself to a lot of other people. And a lot of this gets exaggerated when you tie in social media into the mix. You throw in some TikTok, throw in some IG, throw in some YouTube fitness, a couple hours a day of just scrolling. Next thing you know, you don't really feel that good about yourself. So I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world either, because some people will take it as a positive and they'll use it to work harder. So you got body dysmorphia, you got some people who are very insecure. But at the same time, where it could become problematic, in my humble opinion, is where people feel like they can't keep up with the Joneses and they feel peer pressure to look better. So now they resort to drugs. Now they resort to photoshopping their pictures, and it's unhealthy. You want to feel good in your skin. You want to know when you go to bed at night, you're good, and if you want it for whatever reason, go that assisted route, at least you know that, you've done your research, you talked to the right people, and that it's 110% your decision and not somebody else pushing you into doing so. Okay, so that's body dysmorphia. As far as the self-improvement aspect, that's an aspect as well, because not everybody has body dysmorphia, goes to the gym, who's been looking seriously. Some people just go there for the endorphins, it's all good, and they go back to their regular life. And there is some gray area in there as well. And then you got some lifters of body dysmorphia. And the reason why I say how I've been managing it better is because in the past I would have said, how I cured my body dysmorphia, how I fixed that. I even made older videos in the past as well. But fast forward to today, I don't think that if you're a very serious lifter and you've been at it for a long time, I don't think you can magically cure it. I think there's going to be flare-ups. There's going to be certain scenarios where you might be put under some bad lighting, or you may come back from a sickness. You may have a bad week in the gym for whatever reason. You may have external factors outside your life that are impacting your training, which is going to impact your physique. And this may lead you to not feeling that good in your skin. You may not walk around with your chest held as high because of certain insecurities. And there may be other periods where you are feeling yourself. So social media could really trigger this a lot more. But the conclusion I've been making is that it's something that really just comes and goes. It's in the air. You may experience it for a couple weeks, it's gone. Then you may experience it for a week, whatever the case is. It's unpredictable. Let me know in the comment section below what has been your current experience with body dysmorphia and how have you been coping with it. But now, most importantly, let's get into the solutions. Let's get into some ways that I personally manage it. Not fix, but manage. Because I'm not getting on camera in front of you guys like some authority, like I'm better than anybody else. Like I go through it too. The number one thing I do to manage my body dysmorphia is to not put all of my focus solely on my looks. So quick background story. Before I even had a YouTube channel, I had a blog. And before that, I was just an average guy who, got his personal training certifications, who was consuming a lot of YouTube fitness content, and just training really hard myself, and I was watching all the old school guys, the TMWs, the Mike Changs, Omar Yusuf, Scott Herman, all the guys you could think of, Nick Wright, guys like that. And then I thought to myself, I want to create my own movement in my own way that I like. And since I'm very introverted by nature, it seemed very logical to start a blog. So I started that with the whole mindset that it's not about me, it's about we, because I'm trying to create a community. Then fast forward a little bit longer, got in touch with Alex, and basically he put me on his channel. He got me out of my shell, and I started talking on camera, then I started my own channel. A couple years later, kept running with it. First it was Silverback Exposed, Statue Fit, then over time it was Pg.Coaching. That's still what it is today. What I'm trying to say is that the goal from day one was to create a community. It was about we, not me. Doesn't mean that I put myself on the back end and I'm not really focused on my appearance. I always focus on my looks, but it was always about creating a movement that was bigger than me. And year after year, especially as you got to start making a living off this, especially if I chose this as a career, which I did. And then when it became PG coaching, it was like that to another extent. I started training way more people in person, more people online as well. And that's how it is what it is today. It's not just my name alone and that's it. I'm a coach first. And when I shifted more to that mindset, it really helped me, because what good is it to just have a good physique, but if I don't have, tons of clients in my roster? I don't like that. I want to make sure that I'm really changing lives, and you're only as good as, the ones you teach. And at the same time, the fitness influencing thing is really cool. You could touch a lot of people. And truth be told, I still am trying to do that. I still am trying to grow my channel. But I understand that, with my psychological profile and how, introverted I am by nature, I just really get off on working with people one-on-one. I like writing programs. I'm very meticulous in my program writing. I like talking with people one-on-one, really understanding their situation and creating a very clear path of what's the plan of action to help them get to where they want to be. A lot of general population that I'm working with. And yeah, that's personally where I really get a lot of my passion and my fuel from. It's really on that personal level with the personal training, either in person or online. The next tips are really going to apply to a lot of you guys. The first one's a bit more personal, but it's less of an attachment to numbers. This helps so much with body dysmorphia, I find, because sometimes we chase certain numbers because they just sound cool. 250, 220, 200. Like, these numbers sound assertive, 100%, but at the same time, they are very arbitrary, especially if you're on the shorter side. If you're a guy who's like, 5'6", you're natural, you're chasing 250 lean, it's most likely not going to happen, unless if you're like a complete genetic outlier. In that case, still, it's slim to none. I don't want to put ceilings on anybody either, but it is what it is. And when I was 230, I was chasing the 250 range. I was really attached to the 250 because for some strange reason in my head, it's a quarter of a thousand. So it just sounds big to me, And at the same time, I never reached that. The highest I ever reached was 232, and that was at the end of the day. But at the same time, over time, you're just like, okay, well, these numbers sound cool, but I don't look as good as I could, So, and you go to 220, you're like, okay, still carrying tons of fat. 210, still carrying tons of fat. 200, it's better. And now I'm hovering in like the mid 190s, like 194 right now, and feel pretty good. This is a real sweet spot. Anything from 185 to 195 for me, it's a nice little range, and I'm 5'11", for those who are curious about height, 'cause people are always asking about that. And basically what I'm trying to say is, obviously it took time to build the muscle that I have now, and we could also make the argument that all the bulks, they really helped out, so I don't have any regrets. What I'm trying to say for you guys is, don't get too caught up in just chasing these arbitrary numbers. If you look good, you look good. Most people who look very aesthetic, most guys are not asking, how much you weigh. If you look good, man, it is what it is. Shout out to my man, Sharif. People always ask him on his page, how much does he weigh? Is he 180? Is he 190? The guy's in the low 160s. You put him side by side to me, the guy looks fucking good, man. So we have to stop chasing these arbitrary numbers. And the same thing can be said about the gym. If you're a competitor, if you're a powerlifter, you're a strongman, that's a little bit different, because obviously you're in a competition and you want to, get the green lights from the judges, whatever the case is. But if you're chasing, a better looking body, you're in it for the aesthetics. Even if you're in it in bodybuilding, like the judges, they're not asking, how much you lift. If you look good on stage, you look good. And the thing that's really cool about bodybuilding style training is that there's certain variables that you can manipulate to get a lot more out of less weight. You can make the lightweight feel really heavy if you play your cards right. If you manipulate the tempo, if you manipulate the pauses, the exercise sequencing, all those factors. If you inhibit, because inhibition is the show, it's not just about including more muscles. If you're able to really inhibit muscles and isolate muscles to a higher degree, you could feel the muscle just as much as just throwing weights around. I always been saying that, don't throw the weights, especially if you're in bodybuilding. Make sure that you're using the target muscle, so having that mindset of not having this arbitrary attachment to numbers is really going to help you guys out. Next way to manage body dysmorphia is to hammer your weak points. Now, if you're a complete noob, if you've been at it for a couple of years and you just have to fill out your frame overall, then so be it. Just get bigger overall, build more muscle overall. If you've been at it for a long time, if you've been over like 7 years of training really seriously, whatever the case is, and you do your weekly check-ins and you're looking at your physique and you notice that there's some glaring muscle imbalances. There's some muscles that are just light years ahead of others, bring them up. Do a specialization phase for them. Or you could even just de-emphasize your stronger points and just put your weaker points on the front end. If I look at myself, for example, my arms are actually the reason why I started lifting. I always wanted bigger arms, and they always played catch up with the rest of my physique. Most of the compliments I get are from my back, shoulders, glutes, traps, stuff like that. But like as far as like my chest and my arms, the compliments aren't as there. And when I look at myself, I think my chest and arms have come a long way. They look a lot better than they did before, but there's a lot of room for improvement. So what I'm doing now is I got a dedicated arm day, and I was doing 4 days a week. Now I added in that 5th day. So I was already training arms a lot before, but now I have that dedicated arm day. So I know for an absolute fact, if this doesn't work, then something's really wrong. My execution will be off, whatever the case is, but I'm really stacking the odds in my favor. Chest, I'm hitting it a lot more than I was before as well. But for you, it might be a different story. You may already have great arms and a great chest. For you, it might be your back. You might be extremely tall. You might have some very thin legs. Maybe you could prioritize those a bit more. Maybe as opposed to just hitting legs once a week, maybe you could start having more of like a quad focused leg day and more of like a posterior chain, glutes, hamstring type of leg day. So you could have like quads, adductors, calves, another day for like hamstrings and your glutes and, erectors, stuff like that, and you can start manipulating the variables like that. If that doesn't work, okay, start hitting quads twice a week. Play around with it. Play around with your programming and just see what works for you. See what works for your lifestyle modifications and what could you recover from. Because it's easy to just throw everything at the kitchen sink in a muscle, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not throwing in too much junk volume either, and you're just hammering your weak points. Get stronger overall with immaculate form, and you do that for long enough. Eventually, your weak points will be brought up, and you'll look at your physique as a whole, and you'll have better proportions. The symmetry will be a bit better, and some of your muscles won't be playing catch up as much because you put a lot more focus on those areas. The next way to manage your body dysmorphia is to pinpoint where does it come from. In other words, what triggers it? When you're feeling insecure about yourself, what was the scenario that happened? For a lot of individuals, like I said before, it comes down to social media. They'll do their scrolling, and they'll see, for example, some fake natties online. They'll see some guys claiming to be lifetime naturals when it's not the case. But at the same time, we'll never really know. And sometimes, to play devil's advocate, they actually are lifetime naturals. So don't be a hater either. There could be Photoshop pictures. Some people actually play around with that. But even on a smaller level, some people use very deceptive strategies where they'll take a good photo under good lighting, and it should be good there. It should be ready to post. But then they add in like tons of extra edits to the photo, and it is fair play. At the same time, we have access to these things, and you're not skewing the picture too much. But some people just take it to the extreme. Some guys go on like different apps. Like I just found out about one called Lightroom, and guys are adjusting the clarity and the shadows and the this and the that, and they're adding like 15 features on a photo. And at the same time, I'm like, I personally can't do that myself, because by the end of the edits, I'll look at it and be like, that's not even me at that point. It's too much work that's been done on the photo. I will edit my photos with some sharpen. I've always used a little bit of sharpen because it just adds that little edge, and from time to time a little bit of contrast. But besides sharpen and contrast, I really don't like to touch my photos too much. You get under some decent downlighting, and if you have a pump, you have it. If not, it's all not the end of the world. and you're good. But at least I know when I look at my photos that that's what I look like, you know. And people, when they see me in person, they don't say I look bigger than I look online or that I look smaller. They say it's pretty much what you see is what you get. So that's pretty much what I'm after, you know. So we have to do better. We have to rise above what we see online. You know, if you see some guys who are lying about their usage, if they are, or you know, they're really like tweaking up their photos, rise above it. Understand that when you go online, it's going to be a highlight reel. People are only showing the best of the best. A lot of people, they fail their lifts, they're not going to post it because from a marketing standpoint, they want to, you know, sell their program, whatever the case is. They want to make it look like they're above, you know, the average person, the average lifter, and they want to draw this certain, you know, idea of themselves. You know, this is why I made that video the other day of the relaxed versus the flexed video. You know, you could see I was just doing my laundry in the back, and I just decided to make it. It was a video that was completely unplanned. It was out the blue, and you know, I dropped it. And I really think that that's the future of YouTube fitness going forward. I think it's more of the transparency posts. I think it's less about, I think people are becoming very desensitized. A lot of guys just running tons of stuff and just lying about their dosages and whatever the case is. I think people just want the raw stuff again, you know, and they want to see, they don't want to be lied to, they don't want to be misled. And if you are lying to your audience, you're really just lying to yourself. So it's more about, it's always been about transparency, but in today's day and age, it goes a really even longer way because there's so much deception online. The next way to manage your body dysmorphia is to start giving yourself a little bit more credit if you've been in the iron game for longer. So if you've been lifting, you know, 5+ years seriously with no breaks, you most likely have some muscle on your frame. And if you go out in public, if you go downtown, you go to the beach, and if you're at a reasonable body fat where you can still see somewhat of your definition, you at least have like a flat stomach or you see some type of vein, just a little something to showcase the muscle just a little bit more, you know, and you go out in public, you go to the beach, you go to the pool, whatever the case is, you're most likely going to stand out from a physique standpoint. Doesn't mean you're better than anybody else, but your physique will get some stares and you'll notice that you might feel like the odd one out in the room in a good way because you put in the work in the gym and it's a good feeling, you know. But a lot of lifters I've analyzed and, you know, lifters I've been around, who have body dysmorphia, they still feel a little bit of that itch where it's like it's not good enough. You know, they have a little bit of acne on their shoulders, whatever the case is, they're just so fixated on that, but it's like they're super jacked. You know, so it's like there's always areas we can nitpick. A lot of us who've been in the lifting game for a while, we tend to be perfectionists, you know, but at the same time, there still is a time and place for giving yourself a little tap on the back, you know, and realizing that what you see online, I know it keeps going back to this online thing because it really skews our perception, but a lot of these people online, you don't see them in person, you know. Even myself, when I go out in public, I don't see a lot of lifters. It's very rare. The times I'll get some type of body dysmorphia in person, if it ever happens in person, is if I go to very specific gyms at very specific times where there's like a lot of assisted lifters. And even at that, I still don't feel that bad. It's really, what triggers mine personally whenever I do have it is when I go online. But in the real world, I really don't see it like very often because a lot of people, you know, they don't lift weights. You know, they have regular jobs. A lot of people are raising families. Some people, you know, have lied to themselves saying that like they just don't have time to train for whatever reason. So there's a lot less lifters than you think, in my humble opinion. I know online everyone's jacked. If you go out in the real world, you know, especially in Canada where I live, I don't see that many lifters in public personally. So the next point is everybody's a beast in their own way. What do I mean by this? I'm so optimistic that I could look at somebody who doesn't even lift weights, who has the intention to start doing so, and I could already see the potential. I could already see the direction it could start going in if they get their diet in check and if they really start, you know, lifting on a consistent basis. Even somebody who's been in it for a little bit or, you know, a short amount of years, I could still see the potential. Comment down below if you could relate to this, where you see some guys who are way less jacked than you and you're complimenting them so much as if, you know, it's the other way around. But at the same time, that's what a lot of people with body dysmorphia do, is they put people on a pedestal and they put themselves down in certain times where they feel down, you know. But at the same time, realize that everyone's a beast in their own way, you know. Like if you're a 6'4" individual, you've been lifting for 5 years, and you're looking at someone who's like 5'6", 5'7", he's been lifting for 5-6 years. Like you guys are both beasts in your own way. It's just you guys have different shapes. You know, the first guy who's shorter, he may have more of a stocky, compact type of frame. He may look more full. He will look more full. And you may have a more broad look. You may have more spread out type of look. It's not to say one's better than the other, and it's, at the end of the day, looks are so subjective anyways, so you don't want to get caught up in the trap where you're just putting yourself side by side, just seeing how you stack up to people. You could do it for motivation purposes if you collab with somebody, but at the same time, understand that these are apple and orange comparisons. It's just two completely different looks, and at the end of the day, we're in the gym because we're trying to better ourselves, so you can still analyze somebody and, still take in some free game from them, especially if they give you free advice, but at the same time, understand that you're fighting your own battle and there's still a lot of context. So, you just take and you leave, and not everything that they do is going to apply to you. They could tell you what they do to build their physique, and you could have done that in the past for years and it could have done nothing to your physique. So some people could get away with certain things, especially when we tie in the whole genetics aspect, and that's where it starts to really get complicated because, truth be told, I'm not going to lie to you guys, this whole bodybuilding thing or just physique development, it's not fair. It really isn't fair. There's a lot of guys who could break a lot of rules. They could use crappy form and not get injured, and they're still develop their physique. Some people who they lift in the same exact way, they're just not going to get the same benefits at all. If anything, they'll just get snapped up, and they won't even get the right connection in the muscle. They won't feel anything except they just won't feel the right muscles because they're not doing the exercise properly. Whereas the other guy, he's breaking every rule in the book and he's just getting super jacked. So it's like, you really don't want to look too much at people and what they're doing. You could try it out for yourself, but if it doesn't work for too long, try a new approach out and do what works for you. If you talk to 10 different lifters who are jacked, you're going to get 10 different answers. Ask 10 different guys how they built their arms. One guy's going to tell you it's slow and controlled tempo. Another guy's going to tell you it's cheat curls. Another person's going to tell you got to just do unilateral work because you're too big. So you got to just, lean more towards one side to isolate one at a time to stack the elbow more perpendicular to the ground. You're going to get tons of different answers. Some guys are going to say machine. Some guys are going to say body weight. You don't even need weights. Just do like the gymnasts do. So at the end of the day, try out different things, but focus on your own path. Next step to manage body dysmorphia a little bit better is to clean up your social media. Now, this is not me telling anybody what to do. If you're 150 pounds soaking wet and you have 200 IFBB pros you're following on socials and you want to do that, so be it. But if you're in that same scenario, every time you scroll on social media, you just see some guy who's 100 pounds of muscle bigger than you, you may not feel that good about yourself because on a constant basis, you're spending tons of hours just looking at guys who are bigger than you. How relatable is that? How are you supposed to feel when you scroll through that? You might get some motivation, but at the same time, it may not be the best thing for certain individuals. And I know it myself when I did a little bit of a cleanup on my IG and I started following some pages that weren't even related to fitness at all. It started making me feel a bit better. The people I really follow now are a lot of coaches who I could really connect with, network, get a lot of, free game from. I follow certain fitness influencers. I still follow a lot of fitness pages, and I still follow a lot of IFBB pros. I still follow a lot of mass monsters, 100%, because I could personally draw a lot of inspiration from that. I still follow guys like Holling Sheed, big bodybuilder in the UK, monsters, but I could still look at that and want to train harder. But if I only followed guys like that, chances are I wouldn't be the best for me. I have to still get some balance. I still follow a lot of unassisted lifters, a lot of guys in the UK. Shout out to guys like Adam Powell, AJ Morris, just that whole natural bodybuilding community I really like. I draw a lot of inspiration from that. And when I watch these guys, I feel like I'm on a similar boat to them, and that's basically what I follow. So lastly, and this is more of an unconventional thing, it's having other hobbies outside of lifting. So it kind of ties into my first point of not basing your whole identity on your looks. It's nice to know that you have something else that you're good at. If you want to put all your eggs in one basket and you just want to be a lifter, I really respect that too. But if you could, do other stuff, you could play an instrument or you play other sports, whatever the case is, it's still nice. It's still nice, like a skill to have. Maybe you're a gamer, whatever the case is. For me, it's chess. Chess is my first love, and that's probably why I'm so introverted by nature, is because I grew up as a chess player, a chess champion. If you guys play chess, by the way, if you DM me and you want to get a game in, I only play blitz, like 3-minute matches, let me know, and we'll definitely make that happen. But I like to make them quick. And yeah, so when I play chess, it takes my mind off the lifting, and I know I'm also really sharpening my brain. I'm also doing something completely outside of lifting weights, where there's still standards and it's still a really cool thing personally for me, and I really get off on playing chess. So that's basically it. And I have other stuff too that I like, it's outside the scope of this video, but chess is really a big one for me. For you, it might be something else. You might be into like cars, you might be into photography, you might be into other things, man. I can't speak for everybody else. Comment down below and let me know what your other passions are. What's a side hobby that you have that really complements the lifting very well and really helps you navigate through this whole thing a lot better? So let me know down below, what you think of this video, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, what are you doing to cope with this? What are you doing to deal with it? And how has it been moving forward in 2024? I'm really interested in knowing your input. With that being said, see you guys next time.